Today we're in the presence of high gain royalty. Let me just tell you now, things are going to get loud. Let's check out the Bogner Ubershall. When it comes to high gain amps, there are a few that always get mentioned, and certainly there's a few that have made their way into that super, or you can maybe call it uber gainy Hall of Fame, one of them being the Bogner Uberschall. Now, I have never actually used this amp fully. I've had a couple of minutes, here and there from my time in Guitar, but in all honesty, I've never had a real time to sit down and actually check it out. So, today, for this video, I'm pretty much just going to be kind of checking out all the features in this, just, reacting to some of the sounds and whatnot, seeing what it does have to offer. In the couple of minutes before we started recording, I did check out, most of the channels just to get my head around this amp, and let me just tell you, there's some super, super cool sounds in this. So grab yourself a coffee, grab yourself a water, grab yourself whatever, sit down with me and come on this expedition through high gain royalty, as I kind of opened up the video with as well. I'm going to be using this It's J-Custom, sorry. This J-Custom Ibanez today, because it's got an absolute ton of sounds in it, and I'm going to be able to get a lot of tones out of this. So let's start with just like what I would probably say is the sort of main event of this amp, and let's go with just the full-blown distortion channel. We're looking at the front of the amp, and particularly the actual kind of panel on it there. You've got two channels that you can go between, both completely interchangeable with a few different tones as well. And then we have a couple of universal controls on the left-hand side, along with your usual like effects loop in the back. There's actually a line out and all that in there as well if you do want to do some cabless recording. But let's just check out the gain channel here. I'm going to use the foot switch just to switch over, and you'll see that lighting up. And then let's just see how this is sounding. So that was the sound that I was using just for the intro, and I'm just going to switch back to our clean channel there as well, because as you would imagine, this being a 100-watt amplifier, it can get pretty loud and it can get pretty hot as well, especially when I'm kind of diming it well, not even really diming it, the gain's only at about halfway there, so let's see where that will go when I crank the gain all the way to the top. Maybe activate yourself a little noise gate if you're wanting to go to that level of gain. Now, there's a couple of really interesting controls with the second channel here. The first one I'm going to kind of focus on is this Metamorph knob here. Now, this basically controls two functions. You either have a tightness or a fatness to it. Now, it is on the tight, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of chug on an open E here, and I'm going to reduce that just to show you exactly what it's actually doing. So not only is that obviously kind of tightening up our tone just that little bit, but it's actually giving, to me anyway, to my ear, you're getting a little bit more kind of gain push with that as well. And whether that just be because the signal is just, you know, kind of getting rid of a lot of that sort of flubbiness on the bottom end, but it's definitely just kind of like poking through just that little bit more, even if I do kind of like, I'll do some single note stuff here as well. Super cool there. But if we want to go the complete opposite end of that, you can flick that over just to the fat option here, and I'll just do the same thing, just kind of chug on a low E here and just show you exactly what the scope of the knob is doing. So yeah, depending on, you know, what kind of guitar you've got, depending on what kind of sound you're going for, then that'll come in really handy for a couple of different options. Now, talking about sound, if we're looking at the second channel here, and this kind of relates to the first one as well, but there are actually 3 options that we can choose from. I've had it on the ultra setting, which to me, certainly that's kind of the heaviest setting with that channel there. It also has an Uber and a crunch, but let's start it with the crunch and let's kind of move our way up with that just to show you the proper sort of scope of tones. I'm going to start with some humbuckers on this one, and then I'll change it to the single coils on this guitar just so you can hear exactly how this channel is reacting with this guitar. So a lot of scope in that channel actually to be clean, but in all honesty, when you've got the full-blown distortion options on that channel there, I don't really know why you'd want to do that, especially because if we look at that channel 1 there is actually that same crunch option on there, so I won't really need to go over that sound when I go to that channel. But we go over to the Uber setting here. Again, leave kind of my gain in the middle there, and I'm just going to ramp up it kind of gradually, show you what that's doing. So definitely, it doesn't sound as like crazy as the ultra setting there, but in all honesty, it really can get there as well. So here's like the ultra. It's kind of the more like in your face option there to me. It's, you know, well, the ultra being the more in your face, and then the Uber kind of being that kind of thicker, much like more bottom heavy sound. Now, there is a couple of other options as well with this channel to completely change the tone. Let's maybe just stick with the Uber here. I'll put that back on it. I'll jump back to the channel, but you'll notice that there is this little just knob just right here that's got, it's basically, it'll just kind of determine what the focus of it, well, what the kind of characteristics of that channel is. You've got focus, doom, and bright. I've been playing on the focus the entire time here, but I will just show you exactly what it's doing on the other settings as well. Now, definitely the doom and the bright are going to give you your most drastic differences to that there. Personally, I've really enjoyed using just the focus setting. Just I think that's kind of just that middle of the road with it being too spiky or too low-endy on either end there. But again, depending on the kind of guitar you're using, that will come in really handy for whatever you need. Now, because we started on the highest gain channel, things may seem slightly sort of underwhelming when we move over to the clean here, but one of my biggest surprises with this amp, certainly, and I don't think it's, you know, for anybody who's used a Bogner, probably it's not going to be anything that's surprising, but with this being considered a metal amp, I always thought that the clean was going to kind of be forgotten about a little bit. But check this out, this clean is absolutely stunning. I'm going to stick on a little bit of reverb and delay for this as well, and I'll use the split coils particularly just to show you how kind of glassy this sounds, because it's absolutely amazing. Just really addicting. That's kind of the thing that I've really enjoyed with that channel, is just like, there's something about like a really pristine high headroom clean on a 100-watt amp coming through we're going through the Victory 2x12 jack cab today, which has got V30 speakers in it. And it's kind of that, just like, that was the thing that, as I just said there, is like that headroom is just so addicting and so cool to play with. Now you can kind of crank that up a little bit if you want to, but it does stay relatively clean kind of the whole way. I'll just kind of match my volume to it as well, just so we're not totally peaking, but... Kind of, you can hear it just get into sort of the threshold of it as well, but then if I switch to like a humbucker with it, it might start to kind of just break up that a little bit more. Big nods of approval from Aaron, the videographer in the room as well. He was loving that as much as I was, but it was kind of that thing. It's just, as you know, it's addicting. It's a really, really cool channel to play with. Now you are getting the crunch as well as the Uber setting. So you know, you have heard those. I'm just going to very, very quickly play them here, just to show you what they're doing. If you know, if you skip to this part of the video, certainly, but. So you've already heard those channels there. It just shows you that there's a lot of versatility built into this, and as surprised as I was with the clean channel, that's another surprise that I had with this amplifier, that it isn't just full-blown in-your-face, like, destroy buildings sort of, you know, like, gain out of this thing. That's its kind of bread and butter, don't get me wrong, like, and that it does it really, really well, and one of the sort of main features that I can really pass on to you from my experience of it is just the feel with it. Depending on what mode you've got it on, like say you've got it on like the kind of tighter sort of settings there is just like, you just want to just do those like really tight kind of like triplets, like pan mutes and all that sort of stuff. Whereas when you've got it on the kind of doom settings and everything, you do just want to get a bit more kind of just sludgy and just a bit more kind of, you know, big thick chords with it. So it can kind of go to any avenue of like hard rock or metal, but if you do just like a really high gain seeding tone, but then want a nice clean or a nice crunch on the other side of it as well, then the Überschall does handle that. You know, the Ecstasy is maybe the one that people would point in the direction in terms of like, oh, if you like kind of more, you know, middle of the road like rock, or you don't want like insane tones out of it, but I think the Überschall's one to mention as well. A couple of last features that I want to just kind of touch on before I round up with this. There is a couple of master volume options with this. Now we're just going to be using one today, just obviously just in terms of sound levels and because I'm tweaking away with the amp itself. But this is a really cool feature, so if you do want to like kick over to like a slight dB boost, then, you know, say for a solo or say for a part or anything like that, then you just hit it on the foot switch. You'll notice that just changing the light just right there. just to two completely separate master volumes there. And on the topic of a boost, it does actually have a boost inbuilt to it as well that you just, again, activate with the foot switch and the light goes on there as well. Let's hear it just in action on the ultra setting with some absolutely, you know, not very tasteful levels of gain here, shall we? As if you needed any more gain, you know. The last features that I want to talk about as well, it does have a couple of universal features on it as well, or universal settings, sorry, that will carry on over both channels. That being the presence, the depth, and then the density here. Now, the presence is probably the most sort of like malleable one out of the three that are actually going to change quite a lot of the sort of like characteristics of the amplifier. But even just to very quickly show you just, you know, what the depth and the density is doing, I'm on my clean channel here. And let's just, again, give myself a little bit of ambience on here too. So the depth, obviously, going to be kind of changing the low-end characteristics of the amp, and the density there is, when I was turning it up, it was kind of cutting the volume just that little bit. It's almost, to me anyway, it's sort of acting almost like a kind of another presence on the amplifier, but you obviously just set that to wherever you need it to, just in terms of obviously the kind of volume cut and what it's cutting off frequency wise as well. But let's check out the presence knob here, because as I said, this kind of changes quite a few things about the amp as well. But let's go back to my gain to really hear that, and you'll hear that fizzing happen again as well. So it acts as a normal presence knob like that, but there is a little switch underneath it that has got hair plus, and a U there. And I'm very quickly just going to go through all them and just let you hear exactly what they are doing. So I think you'll agree with me that the Bogner Ubershall has got a lot more under the hood than maybe its reputation precedes it, because certainly for me, the biggest takeaways that I found is that clean is just so much fun to play with, and it's just a big, loud 100-watt clean coming from a head like this is just, it's addicting. That's one of the things that I said earlier, and it's just super, super fun when you throw in a bunch of effects on the back of it and then like just go to absolute town with some single coils. But the main star of the show, it's got to be that distortion and that like uber and the ultra setting on it, just because it's such a like just in your face high gain. I've got nothing else going in at the front of this amp. I'm not doing like the tube screamer trick. I've not got any boosts or anything. I only activated the boost just when I was telling you about it as well. And that's just one of the best metal sounds that I've heard in a while. It's just so much fun to play, and there's a reason that this is in the High Gain Hall of Fame. But let me know what you think about the Bogner Überschall in the comments down below. Have you used one before? Is this your main amp? That's crazy if you're taking out a 100-watt amp to gigs, but you know, all the power to you. But until next time, I've been Kieran, and this has just been a look at the Bogner Ubershall. Have a great day.